Paul George. The NBA suspended him 25 games for violating the league's anti-drug program.
You took some enhancement drugs to make you better on the court, but then you blame it on mental health.
Paul George just got hit with a 25-game suspension. Now he is out here apologizing, talking about mental health medication. But behind the scenes, the NBA allegedly offered him a deal if he named names. Who were they really after? Let me break this whole situation down for you. Paul George's suspension. So here we are, folks, talking about one of the biggest stories to hit the NBA this season. Paul George, the 9-time All-Star, the man Philadelphia paid over $200 million to come save their franchise, just got himself suspended for 25 games without pay. And let me tell you something, this is not some minor slap on the wrist situation. This is a first violation of the NBA and NBPA anti-drug program, and the consequences are absolutely devastating for both the player and his team. The suspension was announced on January 31st, 2026, and it began immediately with the 76ers game against the New Orleans Pelicans that very same evening. Now think about that for a second. 1 minute you are getting ready to suit up and play basketball. The next minute, the league is telling you to pack your bags and go home for the next 2.5 months. That is exactly what happened to Paul George, and the basketball world is still trying to make sense of it all. Now here is where things get interesting. The NBA did not disclose the specific substance that Paul George tested positive for. They never do that. It is all confidential under the league's policy. But what we do know is that this 25-game penalty aligns with violations for performance-enhancing drugs, steroids, peptides, SARMs, or other prohibited substances under the league's banned substances list. And no, we are not talking about marijuana here, because the NBA removed natural cannabis from the banned list back in 2023. So whatever Paul George took, it was something that the league considers a serious violation. But wait, it gets even more interesting. Paul George released a statement to ESPN's Shams Charania shortly after the announcement, and this is what he had to say. He said that over the past few years, he has discussed the importance of mental health, and in the course of recently seeking treatment for an issue of his own, he made the mistake of taking an improper medication. He took full responsibility for his actions and accepted the consequences. He apologized to his family, the 76ers organization, his teammates, and the fans for letting them down. He said he would continue to prioritize his mental health and return to the court a better player and person. Now, I want to be very clear about something here. Paul George is framing this entire situation as a mental health issue. He is saying that he was seeking treatment for a mental health problem, took some medication that he should not have taken, and that is how he ended up in this mess. And you know what? The man has been open about mental health struggles in the past, including on his podcast where he discussed anxiety and depression during the 2020 NBA bubble and after playoff disappointments. So it is not like this is coming out of nowhere. But here is where I have to put on my thinking cap for a second. The timing of all this is absolutely fascinating. Just a few days before this suspension was announced, on January 28th to be exact, Paul George had a monster game against the Milwaukee Bucks. We are talking 32 points with 9 3-pointers in a win. 9 3-pointers. This is a man who has been dealing with injuries all season long, appearing in only 27 games while missing 20. And suddenly, he comes out and drops 32 points like he is in his prime again. Former NBA player Gilbert Arenas and his podcast co-hosts pointed out exactly how suspicious that performance looked to the league.
So last Tuesday against the Bucks, PG had 35, 5 and 5, hit 9 threes.
Yeah, that got him tested.
And then ended up getting suspended a few days later on that Saturday.
Being injured for so long, you know.
Some people are speculating that this performance might have triggered enhanced scrutiny or testing from the league. You know how it goes. When a player suddenly starts performing at a level that seems inconsistent with their recent track record, the league starts asking questions. And apparently those questions led to some answers that Paul George did not want anyone to find. Now let us talk about the financial impact of this situation, because the numbers are absolutely staggering. Paul George signed a 4-year, $212 million contract with the 76ers in 2024. His salary for the 2025 to 2026 season is approximately $51.7 million. That breaks down to about $469,000 per game. So when you multiply that by 25 games, you are looking at Paul George losing approximately $11.7 million in forfeited salary. $11.7 million just gone because of one mistake. The man is 35 years old. He turned 35 in May of 2025, and he has been dealing with injuries throughout his entire career. Now he has to sit at home and watch his team try to make a playoff push without him. The suspension will keep him sidelined until March 25th, 2026, when Philadelphia hosts the Chicago Bulls. finals. That means he is only going to be eligible for the final 10 games of the regular season. 10 games to try and get back into rhythm before the playoffs start. The 76ers were sitting at 26 and 21 and 6th in the Eastern Conference at the time of the announcement. They were on a 4-game winning streak. They were looking like legitimate contenders with Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey alongside Paul George. And just like that, 1/3 of their big three is gone for almost 3 months. You cannot make this stuff up. Now here is something that a lot of people do not know. The NBA's anti-drug program actually allows for something called a therapeutic use exemption. If a player has a legitimate medical need for a substance that is on the banned list, they can apply for this exemption and be allowed to use the medication without penalty. Players do this all the time for things like ADHD medications or other treatments. But apparently Paul George did not obtain one of these exemptions. He just went ahead and took whatever medication he took without clearing it with the league first. And that right there is what got him into trouble. But here is the thing that really has everyone talking. Paul George claims this was all about mental health medication, but he never specified exactly what medication he took or how it violated the policy. He just said it was an improper medication, and that vagueness has left a lot of people scratching their heads and wondering what really happened here. Nobody believes the mental health excuse. The reactions to Paul George's suspension have been nothing short of explosive. We are talking about media personalities, former players, analysts, and fans all weighing in on what they think really happened here. And let me tell you something, not everybody is buying the mental health explanation. Sports commentators Donnie and Joe from Sports Grid did not hold back when discussing Paul George's statement. They went right at him.
Just admit it. Just admit it. You're getting older here. You're feeling the weight of that contract. You want to make sure that you're a good player on the Philadelphia 76ers. You took some enhancement drugs to make you better on the court, but then you blame it on mental health.
On Inside the NBA, Shaquille O'Neal and Charles Barkley expressed surprise at the news. Barkley in particular noted the historical leniency on marijuana, but emphasized that the rules are stricter now when it comes to other substances. He called the whole situation fishy. And you know what? When Charles Barkley says something is fishy, people tend to listen. The man has been around the league for decades, and he knows when something does not add up. Stephen A. Smith on First Take called this a major blow to the 76ers championship aspirations, and he is absolutely right about that. This team was supposed to be competing for a title this year, and now they have to figure out how to survive without one of their best players for 25 games. That is not something you can just brush off and pretend like it does not matter. The 76ers front office has to be absolutely furious about this situation. Former NBA players like Jeff Teague expressed skepticism, suggesting that the league's red flags were raised by George's recent high-scoring game. He questioned whether mental health medications like antipsychotics or ADHD treatments should warrant such a harsh penalty if they are not explicitly performance-enhancing drugs. And that is a fair question to ask. If a player is genuinely seeking treatment for a mental health issue, should they really be punished this severely? The Sports Grid hosts continued their criticism, pointing out how this excuse is going to follow Paul George around for the rest of his career.
I mean, it's not
Mental health.
rocket science here. I mean, the fact that he deflected it and made it about mental health was just crazy. Just own it and move on, because, Donnie, nobody will care in another week. And that'll be the end of it. But
on the Speakeasy podcast, the hosts were even more blunt. They called George's explanation full of it, accusing him of cheating with performance-enhancing drugs and using mental health as a cover story. Now that is a serious accusation, but it reflects what a lot of people are thinking privately. When you come out with a vague statement that does not really explain anything, people are going to fill in the blanks themselves, and most of the time, they are not going to give you the benefit of the doubt. Nightcap hosts Shannon Sharp and Chad Ochocinco Johnson debated the mental health angle extensively. Sharp expressed some sympathy for George, but also noted that accountability matters. You can feel bad for someone and still hold them responsible for their actions. That is not contradictory, that is just being fair. At the end of the day, Paul George is a grown man who made a decision, and now he has to live with the consequences. Social media absolutely erupted with reactions. We are talking about memes mocking George's underperformance despite the alleged enhancements. People were posting things like Paul George suspended 25 games for violating the NBA drug policy, and the man was using performance-enhancing drugs and was still terrible. Another user posted a meme of George airballing a shot with the caption saying he was on PEDs and he still played like this. The internet can be absolutely brutal sometimes, but you have to admit, there is some dark humor in a player allegedly using enhanced answers and still not performing at a high level consistently. Some users on social media even started calling for testing other stars like LeBron James. Now, there is absolutely no evidence to support any implications about other players, but that is just how the internet works. One person gets caught and suddenly everyone wants to see who else might be hiding something. It is human nature to be suspicious once one person in a group gets exposed. The speculation about what substance Paul George actually took has been running wild. Many fans and analysts suggest it could be a stimulant like Adderall, which is used for ADHD, but is banned without a therapeutic use exemption. Players can apply for these exemptions if they have a legitimate medical need, but apparently, Paul George did not obtain one. Others point to traditional performance-enhancing drugs, given his age and recent performance dips. Social media users have started dubbing him PEDP and Prescription P, which is honestly kind of clever if you think about it. The man has had so many nicknames throughout his career, and now he has a couple more that he probably does not want. Analysts like Rhea Hughes criticized George for not consulting his agent or the league about the medication beforehand, and that is a valid criticism. These players have access to team doctors, medical staff, and resources that most people can only dream of. If you are going to take any kind of medication, especially when you know you are subject to drug testing, you need to make sure it is approved. That is just common sense. You are making over $50 million a year. You can afford to make a phone call and ask if something is okay to take. Theories about what he took include banned synthetic cannabinoids, steroids, SARMs, or peptides, but without official confirmation from the league, we are all just guessing at this point. The NBA maintains confidentiality in these situations, which means we may never know exactly what Paul George tested positive for. And honestly, that confidentiality is probably the only thing saving him from even more embarrassment right now. On Gil's Arena podcast, the hosts had an interesting take on the whole situation. They talked about how players have been dealing with similar issues for years.
Mental health. It's mental health.
Listen, I can tell you too.
Nigga 41 out there doing some other shit. Why we ain't testing him?
They do.
$50 million on his body.
He do.
What's up with Paul? Paul can't do it, but he can?
No. You just can't get caught. That's the thing.
Now here is where the story takes an even more interesting turn, because while everyone is focused on what Paul George did wrong, there is another aspect of this situation that nobody is really talking about. And that involves some alleged offers that the league may have made to him behind closed doors. Paul George snitches on other players. Now we get to the part of this story that has really got the basketball world buzzing, because according to reports that have been circulating, Paul George was not just suspended and sent on his way. There was allegedly something else going on behind the scenes that involves other players in the league. According to a Facebook post from Scrooge TV, Paul George was given a chance to drop the names of players he knows who are still using banned substances in exchange for having his suspension lifted. And here's the thing that has people talking. Paul George reportedly refused to do it. He took his 25-game punishment instead of ratting out his fellow players. The comments on that post were full of people expressing respect for George, saying things like he kept it solid and he did not snitch. Now, I want to be clear about something here. The NBA's official anti-drug program does not publicly involve such incentives, and no major outlets like ESPN, AP News, or The Athletic have corroborated this claim. But the fact that this story is out there and people are discussing it tells you a lot about how the basketball world views these kinds of situations. Players stick together, and the idea of snitching on your colleagues is something that is heavily frowned upon in professional sports. It is an unwritten code that you do not break. On Gil's Arena podcast, the host discussed how the NBA protects players by keeping substance names confidential, which allows players to control the narrative about their suspensions.
Because the NBA, they protect their players.
That's what I already made. We had this conversation.
Because the NBA protect their players, they're not going to give you the name of what it was.
No,
for sure.
Let us talk about the broader context of the NBA's anti-drug program, because it helps explain why this situation is so significant. The program was established in 1983 amid widespread concerns over substance abuse in the league, particularly cocaine, used during the 70s and 80s. Back then, drugs were everywhere in the NBA. Some estimates suggest that up to 75% of players used cocaine at some point during that era. It was a different time, and the league was desperate to clean up its image. The cocaine era nearly destroyed professional basketball. Attendance was declining, fans were losing interest, and the league's reputation was in shambles. Commissioner David Stern came in and made cleaning up the league one of his top priorities. The anti-drug program was a direct result of those efforts, and it has evolved significantly over the years to address new substances and new challenges. The current framework is governed by Article 33, the 2023 Collective Bargaining Agreement. The penalties for performance-enhancing drugs are clear. First violation gets you 25 games, second violation gets you 55 games, and third violation gets you permanently dismissed from the league with potential reinstatement after 2 years. Paul George is at the first violation level, which means if he ever gets caught again, he is looking at missing over half a season. A third violation would end his career entirely. The program divides prohibited substances into different categories. You have your drugs of abuse like cocaine, LSD, opioids, and methamphetamine. Then you have your substances of performance enhancement, which include steroids, human growth hormone, peptides, and SARMs. And then there are synthetic cannabinoids, which are still banned even though natural marijuana was removed from the list. Testing is random and happens year-round, including during the off-season. Players can be subjected to urine and blood tests at any time, and refusing to comply can result in penalties just as severe as testing positive. Since 1986, there have been around 42 total suspensions under the banned substance policy, with only about 13 specifically for performance enhancers. That is not a lot when you think about how many players have come through the league over the past 40 years. Either the testing is not that rigorous, or players are just very good at not getting caught. Some people argue that the NBA does not really want to catch too many players because it would be bad for business. Some of the most notable cases in NBA history include Michael Ray Richardson, who was banned for life in 1986 after 3 positive cocaine tests. He was a 4-time All-Star who averaged 14.8 points per game, and his career was completely derailed by addiction. He was the first player to be reinstated but never returned to the NBA. Then there was John Drew of the Atlanta Hawks, who also got a lifetime ban for repeated cocaine violations. He was an all-star who averaged over 20 points per game early in his career. The cocaine era claimed a lot of talented players. Roy Tarpley of the Dallas Mavericks was another tragic case. He was a gifted 7-footer whose cocaine addiction ended what could have been a Hall of Fame career. He got a lifetime ban in 1991, was briefly reinstated, and then banned again in 1995. He even sued the NBA, claiming discrimination under the Americans with Disabilities Act, but he lost that case. Then there was Chris Anderson, also known as Birdman, who got a 2-year ban for methamphetamine in 2006, but came back and won a championship with the Miami Heat in 2013. That is a redemption story if I have ever heard one. It proves that players can come back from these situations if they get their lives together. More recently, we had Tristan Thompson in 2024 getting 25 games for ibutamoren and SARM LGD 4033. DeAndre Ayton got 25 games back in 2019 for a diuretic, which is a masking agent. John Collins also got 25 games in 2019 for growth hormone releasing peptide 2, and just last year, Bobby Portis of the Milwaukee Bucks got suspended for tramadol. The Gills Arena host compared Paul George's situation directly to the Portis case.
How many games did Bobby Porter get suspended for? Say it. 20 what?
25?
25.
For what?
What's
Wait, Bobby Portis?
Bobby Porter, remember last year you got him 25 games.
Oh, I forgot.
What was that?
Portis' agent claimed it was accidental use, similar to what Paul George is saying now. The pattern is becoming familiar at this point. A player gets caught, they come out with a statement saying it was a mistake or an accident, and everyone moves on until the next person gets caught. Now let us talk about what this means for the 76ers going forward, because this team has real championship aspirations. The team actually gets some unexpected financial relief from this situation. According to ESPN's Bobby Marks, the Sixers will save more than $5 million in luxury tax payments as part of George's suspension.
So ESPN's Bobby Marks reports that the Sixers will save more than $5 million in luxury tax payments as a part of George's suspension, leaving the team a little over $1 million over the threshold and making it easier for the 76ers to dip out of the tax this week without harming the roster.
The team receives a $5.8 million luxury tax variance credit, which is half of George's suspended salary. This reduces their position from significantly over the tax line to just $1.26 million above it. This could actually enable roster moves without triggering harsher apron restrictions. With the NBA trade deadline approaching, this added cap flexibility allows the Sixers to potentially acquire players to bolster their depth. Analysts have suggested the team could target role players from rebuilding teams to address the gaps exposed by the suspension. Head coach Nick Nurse will have to lean on depth players like Kelly Oubre Jr. and Caleb Caleb Martin to fill the void left by George's absence. The NBA has come a long way in terms of mental health awareness. The league launched the NBA Mind Health Initiative around 2018 and 2019 as a dedicated mental health and wellness program. Since the 2019 to 2020 season, all 30 NBA teams must have at least one full-time licensed mental health professional on staff. Players have free access to tools like the Headspace Mindfulness app. The NBPA established its own mental health and wellness program in 2018 as well. Players like DeMar DeRozan and Kevin Love have been instrumental in sparking conversations and reducing stigma by sharing their personal experiences. DeRozan tweeted about his battles with depression and anxiety back in 2018, and Love detailed a panic attack in a Players Tribune essay that same year. He founded the Kevin Love Fund and has been a major advocate for mental health awareness in sports. Paul George himself has credited these players for paving the way and has participated in campaigns highlighting vulnerability. But here's the question that nobody wants to ask. Is Paul George genuinely dealing with mental health issues, or is he using mental health as a convenient excuse for getting caught with performance-enhancing drugs? The truth is, we may never know for sure. What we do know is that he is going to miss 25 games, lose almost $12 million, and his team is going to have to figure out how to survive without him. Paul George has had controversies before in his career. There was that paternity case back in 2013 with Daniela Rajic, where a judge called him a deadbeat dad for allegedly avoiding responsibility and not providing support. The case involved disputes over support and visitation, and it was a messy situation that played out in the tabloids. George and Rajic later reconciled, got married in 2022, and have 3 children together. So that story had a happy ending at least. Then there were those insensitive tweets about Ray Rice's domestic violence situation in 2014. George posted comments that seemed to defend or downplay aspects of the NFL player's domestic violence suspension. This drew widespread criticism, including from Pacers executive Larry Bird. George deleted the tweets and apologized, clarifying that he does not condone domestic abuse. But the damage was done, and people have not forgotten about it. But this drug suspension might be the biggest controversy of his entire career. At 35 years old, with a massive contract and championship aspirations, this suspension could not have come at a worse time. The man says he is going to use this time to make sure his mind and body are in the best condition to help the team when he returns. We will see if that actually happens. For now, Philadelphia is left to wonder what could have been, and the rest of the league is watching to see how this all plays out.